Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of Season 0. Today I am recording on my new mic, so I hope the audio quality will be better than before. Also, today I won't be talking to a guest because it's more of a distraction than real help. So here we are after the death of Aurangzeb in 1707. The Mughal Empire has lost its centralizing characters, and the subsequent emperors like Bahadur Shah and Farooq Siyar are not up to the task of ruling the huge empire on their own. The lack of a good meritocratic administrative system like China's led to the division of Mughal Empire into several small states whose thrones became hereditary in nature. Some of the significant states were Awadh, Bengal, Hyderabad, Mysore, Punjab and Maharashtra. We will start the discussion on these autonomous states with Awadh first. The Awadh of Mughal Badshah Akbar was one of the 12 subas into which he divided the Mughal Empire as it stood in 1590. As constituted at the end of 16th century, the Suba contained 5 Sarkars: Awadh, Lucknow, Bahraich, Khairabad and Gorakhpur, which in turn were divided into numerous Mahals and Dasturs. The first Subedar who sort of broke away from the Mughal Empire was Saadat Khan. Nawab Saadat Khan established the Awadh state with its capital in Faizabad and Lucknow in 1724. The Nawab of Awadh, along with many other Nawabs, were regarded as members of the nobility of the greater Mughal Empire. Saadat Khan was made the Subedar of Awadh region by Muhammad Shah in 1722. At the start of Khan's governorship of Awadh, its zamindars refused to follow Mughal regulations. Khan tried to solve Awadh's fiscal and Jagirdar problems by sending agents to assess crop yields. He soon realized that except for zamindars, no one, even including the local officials, welcomed this scheme. Jagirdar agents tried to prevent its implementation. Jagir was a type of feudal land grant in the Indian subcontinent at the foundation of its Jagirdar system. It developed during the Islamic rule era of the Indian subcontinent, starting in the early 13th century, wherein the powers to govern and collect taxes from an estate was granted to an appointee of the state. The tenants were considered to be in servitude of the Jagirdar. So during Saadat Khan's reign, the Jagirdar's Amils or personal staff viewed his scheme as an attempt by Khan to subvert the existing Jagirdar system. This alarmed him, since he did not want to alienate the Jagirdars. In response, he offered a discount on the Jagir assessment paid by the Jagirdars. Sayyid Ghulam Ali, author of Imad as-Sadat, calls this system Ijara. Ijara is also known as tax farming. This scheme stabilized provincial administration, since the Jagirdars no longer had to send their staff to the fields. The Amils were now accountable to him, the governor, and local officials were to approach them directly to resolve disputes. Thus, Khan ended the administrative authority of the Jagirdars over their Jagirs. Other than these administrative changes, Saadat Ali Khan was famous for his commandeering skills. He was known as Mir Atish, commander of arsenal, and Bahadur Jung. At the age of 25, he had accompanied his father on the final campaign of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb against the Maratha in Deccan. The emperor thus awarded him the title of Khan Bahadur for his service. Later in 1739, he also fought alongside the emperor against Nadir Shah's invasion. While the defense against Nadir Shah was unsuccessful because of the strategic retreat of Nadir Shah and his superior artillery powers, he nevertheless fought with great strength and commandeered his troops to the full extent he could. While fighting Nadir Shah, he was arrested and was brought before Nadir Shah. Asked why he fought against a Persian of same religion, Shia Islam, Khan replied that he did not want to betray the Mughal emperor. During their conversation, Shah appreciated Khan's patriotism and love for his religion. He asked Khan to outline a plan in which he could extort money from Muhammad Shah and return to Persia to fight the Turks. Khan replied that Nizam ul Mulk, the Subedar of Hyderabad, is the key of the empire of India. He advised Shah to negotiate with him. Shah and Khan wrote to Nizam the next morning, and the Mughals agreed to pay 50 lakh rupees to the Persian conqueror. On 25th February, Muhammad Shah made Ghazi ud-Din Khan Firoz Jung II, the eldest son of Nizam ul Mulk, Mir Bakshi, or equivalent to an army's paymaster general. This angered Khan, who desired the appointment himself, and told Nadir Shah that 50 lakh rupees was a small portion of Mughal treasury. He advised Nadir Shah to conquer Delhi, which he could loot jewels, cash and other valuables. And Shah gave Khan permission to attack the city. When Muhammad Shah arrived at the Persian camp, he was arrested and his harem was confiscated. Nadir Shah made Khan the army's Wakil-e-Mutallik, regent plenipotentiary. Muhammad Shah was also forced to accept him as the autonomous ruler of Awadh region. Saadat Khan soon after died in March 1739. Alphabetically, the second state in our autonomous state is Bengal. The Nawab of Bengal was a hereditary ruler of Bengal Suba in Mughal India. The Nawab of a princely state or autonomous province is comparable to the European title of Grand Duke. In the early 18th century, the Nawab of Bengal was the de facto independent ruler of three regions of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, which constitute the modern-day Indian states of West Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, and the sovereign state of Bangladesh. They are often referred to as the Nawab of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. The Nawabs were based in Murshidabad, which was centrally located within Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Their chief deputy was the Naib Nazim of Dhaka. Bengal Suba was one of the largest, wealthiest and most influential provinces in the Mughal Empire. In 1717, the Mughal Emperor Farrukh Siyar replaced the imperial viceroy of Bengal with the position of a hereditary Nawab. Murshid Quli Khan, a former prime minister, became the first Nawab. Born a Hindu in the Deccan Plateau in 1670, Murshid Quli Khan was bought by Mughal noble Haji Shafi. Yes, he was bought. His name was Surya Narayan Mishra. In 1690, Shafi left his position in the Mughal court and returned to Persia, accompanied by Murshid Quli Khan. About 5 years after Shafi's death, Murshid returned to India and worked under Abdullah Khurasani, the Diwan of Vidarbha in Mughal Empire. Due to his expertise in revenue matters, he was noticed by Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb and played an important role when applying the Sharia-based Fatwa Alamgiri's financial strategies. Unlike other Islamic rulers, Murshid Quli Khan had only one wife, Nasri Banu Begum, and no concubines. His assassination attempt was done in year 1702, but he handled it very calmly and didn't have to involve Aurangzeb in it. Quli Khan felt unsafe in Dhaka, so he moved the Diwani office to Mukshudabad. He said that he relocated the office since Mukshudabad was situated in the central part of Bengal, making it easy to communicate throughout the province. As the city was based on the banks of Ganga, European trading companies had also set up their bases there. Quli Khan thought that it would be easy for him to keep a vigil over their actions. He also relocated the bankers to the new city. Azim Shan felt betrayed as this was done without his permission. Historian Chaudhary says that Quli Khan was able to do this because he had the support of Aurangzeb. A year later, in 1703, Aurangzeb transferred Ushan from Bengal to Bihar, and Farrukh Siyar was made the titular Subedar of the province. The Suba office was then relocated to Mukshudabad. The city became a center for all activities of the region. Mukshudabad was renamed in 1703 after Murshid Quli Khan as Murshidabad. Until the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, all the powers of the Subedar were vested in the hands of Quli Khan. He was succeeded by Azim Ushan's father, Bahadur Shah I. He reappointed his son as the Subedar of the province and made Quli Khan his deputy. Azim Ushan influenced his father to throw Quli Khan out of the province. As a result, he was appointed the Diwan of Deccan in 1708 and served in this post until 1709. But in 1710, Quli Khan was brought back as the Diwan or revenue officer of the province on the advice of Ushan himself. According to Sarkar Chaudhary, he did so to form an alliance with him, as he thought that it would be impossible to occupy the Delhi throne without the support of local nobility. Though he was brought back, his relationship with the Mughal prince remained strained. After the death of Bahadur Shah I, rather than Azim Ushan, Jahandar Shah became the next emperor, and after Jahandar Shah, Farrukh Siyar became the emperor of Mughal Empire. In 1717, Murshid Khan was appointed as the Nawab Nazim of Murshidabad by Farrukh Siyar. During his reign, he changed the Jagirdari system to Mal Jasmani, which would later transform into the Zamindari system. The condition of Hindus during his reign was also good, and they became more rich. Though Quli Khan was a Muslim, Hindus were employed in the tax department primarily because he thought they were experts in the field. They could also speak fluent Persian. However, if they were found guilty of cheating, Quli Khan supposedly imposed harsh punishments compared to those imposed upon Muslims. 1717 onwards, the Nawab continued to issue coins in the name of Mughal emperor, but for all practical purposes, the Nawabs governed as independent monarchs. Bengal continued to contribute the largest share of funds to the imperial treasury in Delhi. The Nawab, backed by bankers such as Jagat Seth, became the financial backbone of the Mughal court. During the 18th century, the Nawabs of Bengal were among the wealthiest rulers in the world. Murshid Quli Khan died in 1727 and was succeeded by Shujauddin Muhammad Khan. The Nawabs of Bengal oversaw a period of proto-industrialization. The Bengal-Bihar-Odisha triangle was a major production center for cotton, muslin cloth, silk cloth, shipbuilding, gunpowder, saltpeter, and metalworks. Factories were set up in Murshidabad, Dhaka, Patna, Sonargaon, Chittagong, Rajshahi, Kosim Bazar, Balasore, Pipli, and Hooghly, among other cities. The region became a base for the British East India Company, the French East India Company, and the Danish East India Company. The next state we have to talk about is Hyderabad. Nizam ul Mulk Asaf Jha, or Nizam I, was a nobleman of Indian and Central Asian Turkish descent. He was a trusted nobleman and general in Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb's court. Mughal governor of Deccan from 1713 to 1715 and again in 1720 to 1722. He was the Mughal Grand Vizier from 1721 to 1724 and the founder of Asaf Jahi dynasty in 1724, of which he was the Nizam I from 1724 to 1748. After Aurangzeb's death, he was appointed governor of Awadh. But after Bahadur Shah I's death, he opted for a private life in Delhi. His sabbatical was cut short when in 1712 the sixth of Aurangzeb's successors, Farrukh Siyar's son, Azim Ushan, convinced him to take up the post of Viceroy of Deccan with the title of Nizam ul Mulk, regulator of the realm, Fateh Jung. His enemies accused Nizam ul Mulk of building his own power base independently of the Mughals in Delhi, while continuing to give obeisance to the throne and even remitting money to the center. He was then called upon by Farrukh Siyar to help fight off the Sayyid brothers. Farrukh Siyar lost his strife against Saadat Bahar Sayyid brothers and was killed in 1718. In 1724, Nizam ul Mulk resigned his post in disgust and set off for the Deccan to resume the viceroyalty, only to find Mubariz Khan, who had been appointed governor by Emperor Farrukh Siyar 9 years earlier, refusing to vacate the post. Mubariz Khan had successfully restored law and order in Deccan, but he was also disloyal to the Mughal throne, making only token payments and dividing plum administrative posts among his sons, his uncle, and his favorite slaves. Unimpressed by the upstart occupying what he considered to be his rightful place, Nizam ul Mulk gathered his forces at Shakar Kheda in Berar for a showdown with Mubariz Khan's army, known as Battle of Shakar Kheda. The encounter was short but decisive. Wrapped in blood-soaked shawl, Mubariz Khan drove his war elephant out of the battle until he died from his wounds. His severed head was then sent to Delhi as a proof of Nizam ul Mulk's determination to annihilate anyone who stood in his way. He was made the Asaf Jah, the Grand Vizier, by the emperor. It was the highest title ever given by a Mughal emperor to any minister. He was actually disgusted by the emperor in Delhi, and he considered all the emperors after Aurangzeb to be mere puppets. The inauguration of the first Nizam took place behind closed doors in a private ceremony attended by the new ruler's closest advisors. Nizam ul Mulk never formally declared his independence and insisted that his rule was entirely based on the trust reposed in him by the Mughal emperor. Nizam was the head of executive and judicial departments and source of all civil and military authority of the Mughal Empire in the Deccan. All officials were appointed by him directly or in his name. Later assisted by a Diwan, the Nizam drafted his own laws, raised his own armies, and even flew his own flag, and formed his own government. Acknowledging Muhammad Shah's Farman, Nizam ul Mulk had good reason to be grateful. Alongside his own personal wealth came the spoils of war and status. He was also entitled to the lion's share of gold unearthed in his dominions, the finest diamonds and gems from Golconda mines, and the income from his vast personal estates. Nizam ul Mulk is remembered as laying the foundation for what would become one of the most important Muslim states outside the Middle East by the first half of 20th century. Hyderabad state survived right through the period of British rule up to the time of Indian independence in 1947, and indeed was the largest state, covered an extensive 95,337 square miles. Nizam ul Mulk died aged 76. He died at Burnpur on 1st June 1748.